The fourth part relating to the developments regarding Indian cinema and in particularly in the year 1960. The art and new cinema was made by Ritik Katak and that was Meghe Daka Tara, the Cloudcraft star, and it was made in Bengali language, one of Ritik Ghatak's most powerful and innovative melodrama, revolving around the self-sacrificing Nita, played by Supriya Chaudhary. The film narrates the tragic story of Nita, who was forced to carry the burden of her family till she died. And another great movie made in the year 1962 was by Avrar Alvi, and it was a movie made in the language Hindi and Urdu, and it was a great movie named as Sahib Bibi or Gulam, taken from a classic Bengali novel by Bimal Mitra. The story was set in the 19th century. Zamindar milieu of Chaudhary household. It was seen through the eyes of the lower class, but educated Bhutnath, played by Guru Dutt, who arrived in colonial Calcutta in search of employment. The performance by Meena Kumari, Vaida Rahman, Guru Dutt and Rahman were the highlight of the film. And in the year 1963, another great movie was made by Bimal Roy known as Bandini in Hindi. Nutan's best known film was set in the women's ward of a free independent person. The story was based on a book by Jarasand, a former Alipur Central Jail superintendent known as Charu Chandra Chakravarti. The film had beautiful cinematography by Kamal Bose, melodious music by S.D. Barman, Nutan Ashok Kumar Dharmendra and Raj Paranjip were the major artists. And another great art film, new film, was made by Satyajit Ray in the year 1964 in Bengali language, and that was Charulata. The film was based on the story of a story written by Rabindranath Tagore. Ray considered this film structured like a musical rondo to his best work set in 1879 during the social reform movement in Calcutta. It told the story of Charulata, Madhavi Mukherjee, the bored and neglected upper class wife of the reformer Bhuvati Datta, which was played in the film by Salan Mukherjee. And another great movie was made in the year 1965 in the Malayalam language by Ramu chariot, and it was Gemini, the story of a premarital and later extramarital relationship between the daughter of an ambitious Hindu fisherman and the son of a Muslim trader. Gemini is the first internationally acclaimed Malayalam film which won the President's Swarna Kamal for Best Film in the year 1965. The film was also known for its music by Salil Chowdhury and the brilliant performance put in by Satyan, Sila, Madhu and Kotra Kanaya. And another great movie that was made in the year 1965 was Guide, made by Bajarangi. Guide was based on a novel of R.K. Narayan and tells the story of Raju Devanand, acted as Raju, a tourist guide who was given the task of escorting an archaeologist, Marco, and that was filled by Kishore Shah and his dancer wife, Roji Vaidaraman. There was also an English version of the film released in the United States. Though the English version failed, the Hindi film was considered among the best work of Devanand, Vijayanand, Vaidaraman and composer S.D. Burman. And another great movie that was made in the year 1965 was Waqt by Yash Chopra. Waqt was a landmark in many ways. It was a multi-starrer with 4 main heroes and 2 major heroines. It was set a trend for showing the lifestyle of the super rich. It was a lost and found film, a storyline that became a favorite in 1970s, and it has memorable songs. The major artists are Sunil Dutt, Raj Kumar, Shashi Kapoor, Balraj Sahni, Sadhana, Sarmila Tagore, Sasikala, and Rahman. And another great movie made in the year 1967 in the Hindi language by Manoj Kumar was Upkar, one of the most successful Hindi film of all time, winner of Filmfare Awards, National Awards. Established its director and star as a major figure in Indian cinema and creator of India's patriotic films. So, also, another great film of the year 1968 in the new films and art films was made by Satyajit Ray in Bengali was Gopi Gai Bagha Bai. Ray's children fantasy in his first major commercial success and became a cult movie in Bengal. It was a fairy tale about the ghost and kings written originally by Satyajit Ray's grandfather, Upendra Kishore Ray Chowdhury. It explored the adventures of Gopi and Bagha, whose lives changed with 3 boons they get from the king of the ghost. And it was one of the landmark movies that made by Satyajit Ray in the year 1968, and another movie that made in the 1969 was made by Mrinal Sen as in the language Hindi, Bhuvan So. Mrinal Sen's breakthrough film, a low budget film finance corporation sponsored it was sometimes seen as the origin of new Indian cinema. The story set in the late 40s just after independence was a satirical comedy about the upright Bengali railway officer Bhuvan Show, acted by the great actor Utpal Dutt, and his encounters with corrupt ticket collector and his wife Gauri. The film won the President Swarna Kamal and also the Best Director and Best Actor awards. And another great movie made in the year 1970 and in the field of commercial movies in Indian cinema in the language Hindi was Anand, made by Hrishikesh Mukherjee. That was a heart-tugging and emotionally enraging story of a man who shredded happiness and light even as he was dying, was considered one of Hrishikesh Mukherjee's finest films. Rajesh Khanna played the role of the central character in Anand, and Amitabh Bachchan was his doctor friend, Dr. Bhaskar. And another great movie that was made in the year 1970 in the language Kannada was Sanskar, and it was made by Pattavi Ramareddy. And in 1971, in Urdu language, one of the greatest movie made in Indian cinema was Pakija by Kamal Amrohi. The plot was a classic quotation tale set in the Muslim Lucknow at the turn of the century. The dancer and courtesan Nargis, played by Meena Kumari, dreamed of escaping her dishonorable life, but she was rejected by the family of her husband, Shahabuddin, played by Ashok Kumar, and dies dead in a graveyard, giving birth to a daughter, Sabjan. The daughter grows up to become a dancer and a courtesan, and, well, Meena Kumari again played the role of the daughter. She fell in love with a mysterious noble stranger, Salim Rajkumar, played by the role of Salim's father, forbids his son to marry a courtesan. So, another great movie that was made in the year 1972, and that was in the language, and it was Koshish by Guljar, melodrama about a deaf and dumb couple played by Sanjeev Kumar and Jaya Madhuri, who, with the aid of a blind man, overcome the odds of living in a hostile and uncaring society. The film won national awards for Best Actor Sanjeev Kumar and Best Screenplay to Guljar. Then again, in 1974, another great movie in Indian cinema was made by Shyam Bengal in Hindi, and that was Ankur. Bengal successful feature debut was set in feudal Andhra Pradesh and consolidated the new Indian cinema movement. The politically inflected melodrama tells of a newly married orphan youth, Surya, played by Anant Nag, who was sent alone to his rural home to look after his ancestral property. There he had an affair with Lakshmi Sabnazvi, the role played by actress Sabnazvi as Lakshmi, the young wife of a defunct laborer, Sadhu Meher, and she becomes pregnant. Her husband, believing the child to be his, goes to tell the lad not the good news. But Surya, consumed by his guilt and afraid of being exposed, beats the man almost to death. Lakshmi then turns on her former lover with a passionate speech, calling for a revolutionary overthrow of feudal rule. Ankur had won national awards for the second best film, best actor, and best actress. And another great movie that was made in 1970 in the commercial film was Raj Kapoor's Bobby. Then in the year 1975 in Hindi cinema, which created a sensation and an earthquake by the producer director Ramesh Sippy by making the film Sole massively popular adventure film shot in 70 India's best known curry western patterned on Italian westerns with admixture of romance, comedy, feudal costume, drama and musicals. The film also stands on the performance of the five major artists like Dharmendra, Amitabh Bachchan, Sanjeev Kumar, Imam Ali and Amjad Khan. The film's greatest foundation is its script and dialogue by Salim Javed. And another great event occurred in the year 1975 in the Hindi cinema, and that was made by Yash Chopra, one of the greatest movie contributed to Indian cinema was Diwar, boasting one of the best known scripts by Salim Javed, Amitabh Bachchan's hit crime film told in flashback, relied on the familiar plot of two brothers, one of which was an exemplary crop, played by Sasi Kapoor as Ravi, the other as a criminal, played by Amitabh Bachchan as Vijay. The bridge between them was the mother, Nirupa Roy, played as Sumitra. They both adored. The film was inspired by Mother India, Ganga Jamuna, and the life of smuggler Haji Mastan, who was once the underground dawn of Bombay's smuggling network. Then another great movie made in the 1975 in the Kannada language was made by B.V. Kannad, and it was named as Chaman Duddi or Show of Drum. Chaman Duddi was a film about the tribulation of an old Harijan and his family. Shuma's dream is to own a piece of land, which was impossible for him as he was a Harijan. He was tempted to convert to Christianity, for he would then be able to get a piece of land. But he did not do so. One of his sons converts to Christianity and another one died by drowning. Shama slowly drowns himself and his sorrows in palm toddy and plays strangely on his tiny drum. Visually and emotionally, it was a stark and seamless film. Winner of national awards in the year for best feature film and best actor. And another film that was made in the year, and that was in 1977 by Shyam Benegal, and it is a new Indian cinema, and it was in the language Hindi made, titled as Bhumika. The film was based on the autobiography of the Marathi Hindi actress Hansa Vadkar, a star of the Prava Studios. Bhumika had a strong central character. It was played by Smita Patil. Living in a difficult world, our character was realistic and the film was told in a manner that allowed us to feel sympathy for her dilemmas and her mostly poor decisions. And some other films made such as in the year 1979 about in the language in Telugu, Shankar Brahmanam by K. Vishwanathan, then Sparse made in 1979 by Sai Paranjapi, and it was Paranji's first full-scale art house feature, which told about a love story set among the blind. And so also another film of the new Indian cinema was made by Ketan Mehta in 1980, that was Bhavani Bhavai. And the Bhavai, a dying form of folk drama in Gujarat, synthesizes diverse performing acts into socially relevant communication. The film was based on one such ancient Bhavai tale called Garb of the Untouchable. And one of the great movies made in the year 1981 was made by Muzaffar Ali, and it was in the Urdu language, Umrao Jan. The film was based on the Urdu novel Umrao Jan, author by Mirza Muhammad Hadi, which was published in the year 1899, which presented the story of a coalition of Lucknow and Kanpur. The film showcased the talents of actress Rekha, one of the great divas of Indian cinema. Also in the year 1981, another great movie that was made by Aparna Sen in English, and that was 36 Chaurangi Lane, the internationally acclaimed production of Shashi Kapoor, starred his wife Jennifer Candle as a passionate teacher of Shakespeare, who was callously discarded by a young couple after she was of no use to them and was left with only loneliness as company. And the film won national awards for Best Director, Best Cinematography, Best English Film. It also won the highest award from the Manila International Film Festival. And in the year 1981, also some other great movies made as Adi Shankaracharya in the year 1983, and it was made in the Sanskrit language, and it was the first such film made in Sanskrit by GVR. In 18th century Kerala, it tells of Shankara, aka Adi Shankaracharya, the best known Adepta Vedanta philosopher, to whom over 300 Sanskrit texts are attributed and the subject of numerous biographies. And in the year 1983, another great movie was made in the language of Odia, which is regional language in Indian states of Odisha, was made by Nirad Mahapatra, and it was named as My America. Mahapatra's look a fast feature shot on 16 mm with professional actors like Umpuri, a small coastal town in Odisha. So, also in that following year, and it was in the year of 1984, another great movie that was made as Sarans by Mahesh Bhatt, through an elderly couple coping with the loss of their son. Mahesh Bhatt sons a delicate story of intense emotions, and Anupam Kher and Rohini Atangadi were magnificent as the protagonists. And in 1985, another great movie that was made, Mirchi Masala, by Ketan Mehta, intended as an allegory of colonial oppression but presented as a sex and violence drama. The film was set in pre-independence Saurashtra. And also, another great movie that we have not listed, made in 1983, was Ardha Satya. Why Govind Nihalani, one of the best police films of Indian cinema, whose realistic and gritty style and depiction of links between the police, gangsters, and politicians set the style for the whole genre of police films. And in 1985, another great film was made in the Malayalam language, and that was made by G. Aravindan, named as Sidambaram. And in 1987, another great movie was made in Tamil language by Mani Ratnam as Nagan. And so, by these developments in Indian movies, we found that in the year 1988, a great movie was made by Meera Nair, titled as Salam Bombay. And many such movies were made up to 2026, that already we have discussed in length in our second and third part of the Indian cinemas, the very development and those supports and help made by Government of India and those institutions established by the Government of India, such as Film and Television Institute of India, National Film Archive of India, National Film Development Corporation, the Film Division, and Children's Film Society. So almost in all these parts of our lecture series on Indian cinema since the very beginning of 1896, when Auguste and Louis Lumiere of France, and they met at the Escalade Mansion in Watson Hotel. 6 little films such as Entry of Cinematograph, Arrival of a Train, The Sea Bath, A Demolition, Leaving the Factory, Ladies and Soldiers on Wheels. So, how it was at the end of 1896 and in 1897, it started in Calcutta and Madras, the first Indian as H.S. Badrundar Shep Dada, and in 1999 the Wrestlers, Man and Monkey, and in 1912 R.G. Tani and N.G. Chitra as they made Pundalik, and 1913 Raja Harishchandra made by Dada Saheb Phalke. So also Mohini Bhasmasur, Satyavan Savitri, Lanka Dahan, and in 1917 Satyavadi, Raja Harishchandra. So, almost all the developments that we have almost discussed in every part, and the very role played by the very development of Indian cinemas. Why? Adres Irani and B. Shantaram. And it was in 1926 then the very film of Veer Abhimanyu Light of Asia, and it was made by Himanshu Roy. Then the very development of Indian talkie, Alam Era, made by Adrisir Irani in 1931. Then the Telugu version of talkies, Bhakta Prahlad, Tamil version of talkie, Kalidas, and B. Shantaram, P.C. Vadua, Devaki Bose, Nidhen Bose, Mehboob Khan, S.S. Basan, Sarab Modi, Vijay Bhatt, Bimal Roy, K. Abbas, Raj Kapoor, and Guru Dutt, how they have played for the development of Indian cinemas in the early 1930s and 1940s. Then we have discussed the very development made in the 1960s, the decade that we would not forget the very contribution made by K. Asif, Raj Kapoor, Dilip Kumar, B. R. Chopra, Devanand, Chetan Anand, Devendra Goyal, Ramanand Sagar, Shakti Samant, Raj Khosla, Guru Dutt, Manoj Kumar, O.P. Ralan. Even we have discussed about those developments made in the enriching Indian cinema, the contribution made by those directors, scriptwriters, lyricists, musicians, actors and actresses in the 70s, 80s, the 90s, and even up to the present scenario in the 2026 that we have discussed. And also we have discussed the very origin and development of new Indian cinema or the art film that was contributed with the development made by Satyajit Ray, Mrinal Sen, Shyam Benegal, Ritik Ghatak, etc. So, hereby we would like to conclude our series on Indian cinema that we have started, and almost we have taken much of the time to complete the series, but whatever we have discussed and present in those lectures are brief assessment and analytical review of the very developments and contributions made by the directors, producers, music directors, lyricists, script writers, actors, actresses, and finally the producers. So hereby we would like to complete and to conclude our series of discussion on the very origin, evolution and development of Indian cinemas, which that we have discussed in both the context of commercial films and art films, that much contributed in reaching the very culture, history and development of Indian cinemas.